Richard, no, Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization.
You are attacking our news organization. Can you give us a chance to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you state, Mr. President-elect,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically, Mr. President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
The news that's coming off is just, these are just Washington fights. They're fabricated issues, they're phony scandal, they're fabricated issues, they're phony scandal.
President, earlier this year you told us you had ordered your administration to cease and desist on payments to journalists to promote your agenda. You cited the need for ethical concerns and the need for a bright line between the press and the government. Your administration continues to make the use of video news releases, which are prepackaged news stories sent to television stations, fully aware that some or many of these stations will air them without any disclaimer that they are produced by the government. Comptroller General of the United States this week said that raises ethical questions. Does it raise ethical questions about the use of government money to produce stories about the government that wind up being aired with no disclosure that they were produced by the government?
There's a Justice Department opinion that says these pieces are within the law so long as they're based upon facts, not advocacy. And I expect our agencies to adhere to that ruling, to that Justice Department opinion. This has been a long-standing practice of the federal government to use these types of videos. Agricultural Department, as I understand it, has been using these videos for a long period of time. The Defense Department, other departments have been doing so. It's important that they be based upon the guidelines set out by the Justice Department. Now, I think it'd be helpful if local stations then disclose to their viewers that that this was based upon a factual report and they chose to use it.
What is going on, everybody? I'm Davey Crocko. Welcome back to the Crocko Show, episode number 7, where we're going to be diving in to the CIA and their mind control patsies. Came across some information about Charles Manson. We've done some dives on Timothy McVeigh, Ted Kaczynski, etc. But today we're going to try to link those together with a doctor that met with all of these individuals. We're just going to talk about the mind control operations, the domestic terrorists that we see throughout the United States, and abroad we see the global terror epidemic, the war on terror, CIA created destabilization of nations. Someone like Osama bin Laden, who was under our thumb for many years. The Mujahideen, who we funded and armed to fight people on our behalf. Yet, nowadays, they are all looked at as these lone wolf attackers. Well, that's not the case. The CIA is highly involved with other black site operations that get involved, but the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, is a main proponent of sending these mind control patsies out. Now, we as a society are brainwashed to this. We think these are just random events that happen. We do not realize how much control we are under. It starts with the television. It starts with what's coming out of Hollywood. It starts with what we hear from our own government, who are just actors playing a role. It's a world stage. They are there for entertainment purposes only. They are puppets masking the black operations behind the scenes. That's why television, you can spell it out, tell lies while you visualize it. Programming, that's why TV shows are called programs, to program your mind. A TV series, they run a series of programming in your mind. Movies, it moves you emotionally like all spells will do. Why do you think they call it cast? What are we doing? We're casting out. Comcast, a broadcast. It casts spells broadly. TV crew. What does a crew run? Crew runs a ship. Crew runs, the pilots of the crew. What do they call a TV show when they start it? A pilot, to guide you on the journey. There's directors, producing of spells. There's just so many different ones. Channels, channeling something, frequencies. And where does Hollywood come from? You guys are all familiar with what Hollywood stands for. I'm sure you are. But the wood of the holly. The Hollywood. Wood of the holly. They would use this to cast spells. If you guys aren't familiar with this, this would be Hollywood. It's like in the home of mass propaganda and conditioning comes out of California. The Hollywood was the favorite source for the magician. That's what the magician's wand is made out of, the wood from the holly. Harry Potter, I think, is the movie where you would see him using this Hollywood wand. So we're always under some kind of programming, yet we always look at it as if it's some kind of conspiracy. Now, we're going to be going down a couple roads today. We're going to start off with just this clip of the Mockingbird media. We're going to get into Charles Manson a little bit. Obviously, everybody is very familiar with the Manson murders and what happened in California back in the 60s. We are all familiar with that. But we're going to go a little deeper into some of the doctors that would have worked with someone like Charles Manson. People that worked with the Unabomber. People that worked with Timothy McVeigh. We will also go and listen to a whistleblower about the OKC bombing, and we'll kind of judge if he's credible or not. We have many different things to go over today. I'll preface it with what we're going to go over. Kind of Harvard's experiments, what the Unabomber would have been doing in Harvard in 1962. Timothy McVeigh, like I said. Cody Snodgers, the whistleblower. We'll talk about Gary Webb, a journalist who ended up committing, quote, suicide after he blew the whistle on CIA drug running operations. We'll go through some timelines of the CIA. We'll go over Osama bin Laden, many different CIA operations in the Middle East, and that's most of the stuff we'll be going over. I have documentaries and work from people like the Corbett Report, people like Ole Damagard. I have many different Truth Stream Media will be one that I will be playing a little bit of, and we'll just kind of jump around a little bit and go through these stories. So I hope you guys enjoy this stream. I'm really trying to put forward a nice professional. I'm trying to change up how my stream looks, doing the chat overlay. I tried to donate to myself on Streamlabs, but I think because my email matches the email of the thing that something messed up. So if anybody wants to give it a shot with like $1 or something just to see if it shows up, feel free. If not, no big deal. I just wanted to see if the overlay thing popped up, but it wouldn't allow me to just donate to my own thing for some reason. And I don't want to spend time during the stream just changing card numbers and wasting my time and your time. But that's not like a way to get a donation out of you. Just if someone wanted to try it for me, I had no problem giving you the money back since you tried it. I just wanted to see if it popped up. But that was weird. Oh, that's because I had it up. Okay, so the Mockingbird media.
But evidently in some cases that's not the case. So anyway.
Guarantee that.
Where the CIA would have people embedded, journalists embedded in corporate media, places like ABC, CBS, NBC. Now we see it more broadly, places like CNN, Fox News, anybody in the corporate establishment media, and now they're branching out to alternative media, putting plans in place.
Real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. And we're looking at that very carefully.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
So this was an obvious cover-up. This was something that they didn't want to talk about in front of the national public. This is when they would have hearings in front of the public that would be televised, and the world would stop, and they would watch, and we would still have hidden information, but you had a better chance if you were watching, if you were paying attention, if you released the programming from your mind, you could read between the lines and see these sessions. Yet, when asked about having somebody embedded in the media, they chose to not disclose that in the open session, said that was for private. Now, there's been a lot of buzz in the news over the last month where they're finally coming forward and they're telling the story of CIA brainwashing and the poisoner-in-chief, and this is all common knowledge now. They're going to openly talk about MK Ultra. They're going to openly talk about the programs they ran, dosing people with LSD, dosing people with acid, dosing people with a myriad of drugs, and then performing mind control operations on them. Now it's all out in the open. Yet they let you just stay in one simple lane. I think Truthstream Media said it. They keep you in a specific swim lane with the information they want you to have.
Apparently, Amazon, for this month's list of books to read as recommended by Amazon, is including this book titled Poisoner-in-Chief.
Now, they're talking about Sidney Gottlieb, who would have been the head of the CIA at the time when they were performing these operations. I saw someone mention Laurel Canyon in the chat. Yes, Laurel Canyon is a very important part, where the CIA had their own movie studio in Hollywood that would pump out propagandic films. So a lot of people in the chat do get this. They do understand what we're talking about. Now, during this video, I will probably switch to full screen a couple times, where we're just going to be watching some of these documentaries that were done on people like Timothy McVeigh. Short stories on Ted Kaczynski and the Unabomber, videos like this from Truthstream Media. So I could lay it out in text, I could lay it out by talking about it, but some of these people have done such great work. What I'm going to be talking about mirrors kind of what they already put out, and then I'll add a little more information from what I've been digging into. So I think that'll be a good way to lay out this stream.
Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA Search for Mind Control, by former foreign correspondent for the New York Times for 20-plus years, Stephen Kinzer. Now, I want to preface this by saying I have not read this man's book. I really don't know anything more than what I see right here on the cover of this. But what I see right here on the cover of this is a very narrow aspect of what that is. Focus on one of the main scapegoats of the entire program, Sidney Gottlieb, and the drug aspects of it.
The CIA's drug testing program. Testing drugs. Some drug research was carried out on cancer patients to test LSD. The CIA had been testing the drug LSD. Massachusetts Senator Edward Kennedy said that prostitutes were employed.
Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the man in the center,
to entice unwitting victims, the so-called CIA safe houses.
The CIA's chief chemist and in charge of Project MK Ultra.
And knockout drugs.
When something that is promoted in the mainstream comes out about MKUltra, it's always focusing on these aspects.
Unknown to the troops, the drug was added to the water on the second day.
Almost exclusively. And that right there makes up the majority of the officially prescribed swim lane regarding the CIA's unethical Cold War mind control experimentation program known as MKUltra.
And that is what we get in the mainstream media. That's what we get from people that are in the intellectual field writing books. You're only going to get the mainstream story. You're only going to get names that have already been uncovered. You're not going to get a deeper dive. We're going to start with Charles Manson. And what we're going to do is link Charles Manson to a doctor that just so happened to work with Ted Kaczynski and Timothy McVeigh, along with many other people, all around the same time, Then all of a sudden, these people somewhere down the line become crazy domestic terrorists, lone wolves out of nowhere that just started going cuckoo crazy and just wanted to blow up things and kill a bunch of people. Well, it's not that simple sometimes. Everything isn't always as it seems. So, just a quick little interview of Charles Manson. Obviously, we're all familiar. He's in our lore. He is deep in our minds. We all know who he is. But let's just do a little update on Charles Manson, and then I'll get into the report about the doctor, which will set up the rest of the people I'm going to talk about. As I said, some people are going to be like, why are you playing these clips or these longer form clips? Because I don't think a lot of people have seen some of the things that I'm going to show. These are channels that I watch, and I think they do a very good job. Now, this was just an interview he gave in 1987 from San Quentin.
In San Quentin prison. That is where we talked with him and with Newell Emmons, author of Charles Manson, in his own words. Our conversation lasted an hour and a half, during which Manson was sometimes lucid, sometimes incoherent, and frequently manipulative.
Well, those are signs of being drugged.
From your words, as Mr. Emmons quotes them in this book, it's clear that you were guilty of murder, and yet he says in all his conversations with you, he never heard you express remorse. Have you never felt it?
Remorse for what? You people have done everything in the world to me. Doesn't that give me equal right? I can do anything I want to you people at any time I want to, because that's what you've done to me.
Now, when he's saying what you've done to me, think of the experiments that were done to this man. Think of the mind control trauma that was done to this man. If that's what he's saying in his mind, that's fucked up. This is what you've done to me. This isn't an exoneration of Charles Manson. This is in his mind what he thinks.
If you spit in my face and smack me in the mouth and throw me in solitary confinement for nothing, what do you think's going to happen when I get out of here? Guilty. I wouldn't do anything that I felt guilty about.
You don't feel guilty at all?
There's no need to feel guilty. I haven't done anything I'm ashamed of. Maybe I haven't done enough. I might be ashamed of that, for not doing enough, for not giving enough, for not being more perceptive, for not being aware enough, for not understanding, for being stupid. Maybe I should have killed 400 or 500 people, then I would have felt better. Then when I felt like I really offered society something. You know, if I wanted to kill somebody, I'd take this book and beat you to death with it, and I wouldn't feel a thing. It'd be just like walking to the drugstore. Do you feel blame? Are you mad? Do you feel like Wolf's about referendums? Get friends,
Newell Emmons is an ex-con...
Makes sense to me. I don't know about you guys. That made a lot of sense. So you'll see exactly what they're overlooking right here. Inside Charles Manson's crazed cult. We're just going to do a little bit of this.
From the surface. Do I want revenge on these people? No, there is no such thing.
But nor does Deborah Tate believe the surviving Manson family killers should ever be allowed to go free. Right now, that is a very real possibility for murderer Leslie Van Houten. Her parole will be either permitted or denied within weeks.
I don't think that people that were condemned to death that are undoubtedly guilty of the most...
They look so happy, though. Why do they look so happy? Just looks like they're having a good time. It's on the way to jail. No problems here.
Taken the call. For Bob Burbridge, one of the first cops on the scene, the memory of those killings on the 9th of August 1969 will never be erased. How would you describe what you saw?
Oh, it was horrific. I mean, it was one of the worst things I've ever seen. I've never seen that many dead bodies in one place before. And it was horrible. It was just horrible. They were young people. They were innocent people who were slaughtered by knives and guns, and it was awful.
You love all the pain that you've caused people, all the anguish you
I don't know pain. I don't know pain. I have no depth of pain. I have no depth of suffering. I don't know ridicule.
The rantings of a madman. Charles.
And that's always how they're going to present you. That's always how they're going to present these people to you. Ramblings of a madman. All of these people are just mad. Nothing's happened to them in the past. Let's not look into that. Let's talk about, oh, he was just an aspiring, musician who happened to go down the dark path. He was mentally disturbed. Yes, are there mentally disturbed people out there? Of course. Do they commit crimes? Of course they do. But they never want to dig deeper into what actually happens with some of these people. Now, a reporter just uncovered some history-changing Manson family connections to the CIA and Hollywood. Forget everything you know about Charles Manson. The crimes of the Manson family resulted in one of the most famous murder trials in history. But new research has come to light that could totally change the history of the case. Much of what was believed to be true about the Manson murders and the cult that carried them out comes from a narrative that was spun by the prosecutor, Vince Bugliosi, both during the trial and in his book Helter Skelter. Now, Helter Skelter was the idea attributed to Charles Manson that he would commit these murders, blame them on the colored folks, blame them on the niggas. And what he would do is start a race war throughout the country. Helter Skelter. That's the meaning of the term. And that was a best-selling novel for this guy where he got to push this narrative onto the public. Nothing about the murders made any sense. There was a strange cult of hippies that were killing celebrities for no apparent reason. And the young people carrying out the crimes seemed to be under a spell of charismatic lunatic and, quote, failed musician, which they always put in there, Charles Manson. Now again, they were under the spell. Why is it called broadcasting? Because they're casting spells abroad. So they said he was a lunatic, a failed musician. The prosecutor created a narrative that Manson and his followers had no personal motive in the killings, but were attempting to instigate a race war, Helter Skelter, by framing the Black Panthers for the crimes. The Black Panthers had enough crimes of their own. However, in years since, many researchers have had trouble making sense of the story that was established by this prosecutor. Manson was certainly a racist and problematic in a variety of ways, but there is ample evidence that the story we have come to accept about the cult and their crimes is a total fabrication. Now, over 20 years ago, there's a man named Tom O'Neill, and he started investigating this Manson case while he was on assignment for his publication, which was a publication called Premiere Magazine. You guys remember magazines? Those used to be a thing. It's out of print now, obviously. Now, at first, O'Neill wasn't very interested in this case, thinking that the public already knew the full story of Charles Manson. We've all heard the story of Charles Manson. But as he kept going and he's put together some softball articles about the murders and what happened in Hollywood and how it changed the landscape in Hollywood and how people looked at some people that were hanging around celebrities, he started beginning to find clues that would really get him obsessed with this case. Someone that didn't have any interest in the case all of a sudden became obsessed. Now, he ended up coming out with a book called Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. It was co-authored by somebody and details about a decade's worth of research that began with that assignment he was given and didn't want. Someone mentioned Paul McCartney looks dead behind the eyes. Well, that's a conspiracy too, right? That Paul died in the car crash. Jan Brennan, obviously, bringing up Tavistock Institute. A lot of the bands of that time were brought up. The lead singer of The Doors, I believe it was, his father was in the CIA. A lot of boy bands that we would see in the early 2000s, those groups don't know each other. These people aren't friends, or these people don't know each other and hung out and started in a garage and played music. They're put together perfectly to get the most fans, to get the most people interested. Beatles were a phenomenon like no other, but believe that they were put together for everybody to start that chaotic frenzy of loving them and worshiping these false idols, as everyone does. So as he began reporting on the story and conducting interviews with the police and prosecutors involved in handling the case, he found evidence that there was some kind of cover-up taking place. Upon further investigation, he learned that Manson was far more connected in Hollywood and the entertainment industry than anyone believed before. In fact, there was compelling evidence that Manson was a figure somewhat similar to Jeffrey Epstein. He was connected to high-profile figures through a child trafficking operation. Jeffrey Epstein. It is often underplayed in dramatizations about the Manson family, but many of the hippies in that cult were actually underage girls. O'Neill's research suggests that Manson was popular in Hollywood because he trafficked these children to various record executives, actors, entertainers, agents, just all the rich people that orbit celebrities. And the 60s were a way different time. Now, gets a little more suspicious when considering that Manson and his cult seem to be protected by the government and local law enforcement. Now, this is during a time in the 60s, late 50s, 60s, where the CIA, the shadow operation, is looking in and using these musicians. They would, in the news, you would hear, well, the CIA has a file on this guy. When we were younger, we would hear it about Tupac and people like this, that the CIA was always watching them. When, at most of the time, they're working with them, and the cover story is that they're investigating them. So they seem to be protected by the government, plus the local law enforcement. Manson committed multiple crimes while on parole, but was released on pretty much every occasion. He documents how the LAPD knew that Manson was up to for a long time and did nothing. It may have even looked the other way in the previous murders that he and the cult had committed. Now, O'Neill admits that he could not determine why the family was being protected. Well, I have a good idea. The CIA made this person, who then went out and spread this message to his cult. He used the tactics the CIA would have gave him on these young, impressionable young women that he would bring in. He found complicated web of possible explanations, all of which were backed up by well-documented evidence, including admissions from people involved in the case. Jeremy Bowman says, "What's up to everybody? What's up, buddy? Hey, Teddy Spaghetti, I see Irrational Times in the chat. Good to see you guys." One of the most interesting angles revealed in the new research is that the Manson family was in regular contact with a notorious doctor who worked in the CIA's MKUltra mind control experiments. Now, this guy's name was Louis West, and his list of patients, when you hear it, will start putting the pieces together for you. He worked as a psychiatrist who performed Jack Ruby's controversial psychiatric evaluation. Jack Ruby, the man who shot Lee Harvey Oswald as he was being escorted for the cameras after his quote-unquote assassination of JFK. We obviously aren't going to go down that rabbit hole, but we know Lee Harvey Oswald never acted alone, but was a CIA operative himself. So Louis West, this doctor, performed Jack Ruby's controversial psychiatric evaluation. Was also a major player in the CIA's mind control experiments. However, not all of these experiments were in the lab. Some of them took place out in public in the form of taking surveys, observing people in their day-to-day lives, meeting them at their homes. And West, at the time, this Dr. Louis West, was fascinated with the hippie culture. He just was infatuated with this organic movement of hippies, and he wanted to infiltrate that and see what he could do using the myriad of drugs that they used on people, the myriad of mind control tactics. If you already have a cult that's organically growing and you can co-opt that, use your techniques as a CIA mind control agent, well, you have something on your hands there. Because then the public only sees it as an organic movement of them doing it by themselves, where you're just pushing the needle a little bit. So he was fascinated with this culture, and he would conduct what he called open-air experiments in San Francisco's Haight neighborhood. This was the epicenter of the movement at the time. He set up fake hippie crash pads in the community so he could secretly observe the hippies in their natural habitat. It's funny how they word that. The CIA also set up free medical clinics. You see this nowadays with the opiate epidemic. What do? They set up places where you can get clean needles or you can use cleanly. What do you think they're doing to those people when they get them in there? What kind of medications are they pumping them with? What kind of thoughts are they putting into their heads? Got to think about all these things. So they would set up these free medical clinics in the neighborhood under the pretense of giving free medical care. You'll see in your cities probably they have the vans that go around and just give people free health care. Hey, hop in the van, kid. We just want to shoot you up with some vaccinations. But with the covert goal of examining them and using them as test subjects. So the Manson family regularly came through this clinic. Another psychiatrist who worked on mind control experiments with West even embedded himself in the cult for several months. West was deeply connected with the Manson case, but was strangely absent from the trials. This is even more strange considering that he often took every chance he could to speak as a witness in cases where a brainwashing expert was needed. But yet the one he was involved in, nowhere to be found. Jan Brennan says, wow, Davey, lots of important info you're sharing. I didn't know a lot of this stuff. We're here to learn. Information I put out is for other people to use, for other people to pick apart, question, dissect, be skeptical, or just enjoy. Many of the files detailing what happened during Project MKUltra were destroyed. We know that story. This was after the public learned about it. They started destroying it. Some made it out because some of the MKUltra records were actually connected to other records that weren't destroyed, and that's why we got the small amount of information we do now. So the extent of West's research may never be known because of this destruction. However, O'Neill's research provides plenty of evidence that West was working on mind control experiments involving the training of remorseless assassins, using a combination of hypnosis, LSD, and sleep deprivation. Is it a mere coincidence that Manson used these very techniques to train once innocent people to kill on command? So the same thing he's learning from the CIA is the same thing he's teaching to the people that are coming in. Now, this is a book called Chaos that he's coming out with, but it explores other things to the story that are just as interesting and well supported. Possibility that Manson was sort of an agent provocateur set by government's COINTEL program. Very important. We spoke about COINTEL about a month or two back on a couple stories we were working on. Very interesting, COINTEL. You'll see a lot of COINTEL agents on YouTube and TV. Got to be very careful. What they do is spread misinformation, look to radicalize a younger group of people to do their bidding for them when they skate free. So they were there to diminish the peaceful image of the hippie generation and scare rich white celebrities away from supporting the Black Panthers. It is possible that all of these theories are true. After 20 years of research, O'Neill is this is just the tip of the iceberg. The prosecutor was aware of this research for a number of years and went through great lengths to intimidate him over reporting on the case. So the person that prosecuted Charles Manson wanted to quell the research of a private journalist. You're going to see a lot of this throughout the stream. The CIA also likes to shut down any dissent, anybody that's breaking stories. Gary Webb is a famous journalist who broke the story on the CIA drug running. Well, one day he just committed suicide. In one case, while this guy was up for district attorney, he beat his pregnant mistress until she had a miscarriage because she refused to get an abortion. In another, he stalked a former milkman and threatened his family, and after becoming convinced that his wife had fathered the child with a delivery man, despite a paternity test proving otherwise. So this was this Bughozi prosecutor went on to make millions of dollars, witness intimidation, tarnishing scandals. So the book is going to be called Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History. I believe this is a book I'm going to pick up, probably just order it. So I'm going to give you guys links to everything I'm showing you. Here's to this article. Charles Manson breastfed into adulthood. It sounds very familiar. Sounds very, very familiar. So that's the Charles Manson information. And what we did learn in there that we need to remember is the doctor named Louis West. I've heard him called Jolly also. Jolly Lewis West. UCLA, so always out of California, but his name was Lewis West. So that's what we're going to remember for that little thing right there. If you give me a second, I'm going to pull up some more links, and we'll move on to the next portion of the story. Chaos sounds like a good book. I mean, I'm not saying it just because I covered that story. That does sound like an interesting read. We're going to get into a little bit more just on this specific doctor himself. We talked about Jack Ruby. I've talked before about the Unabomber. I've talked about the OKC bombing. I've talked about it in different contexts. The OKC bombing, obviously, because of the ominous terrorist bill that ended up being the groundwork for the Patriot Act. We also have things like the Unabomber. I remember when, what was his name? Caesar Sayoc. Remember the guy that was walking around or driving around in the van with the Trump stickers on? Well, that reminded me of the Unabomber who went to psychiatric evaluations at Harvard University, came out a different person. So I am also just putting in my link on Twitter and on Discord. If any of you guys ever want to share anything that I'm doing on Twitter or anywhere you guys want to share it, it'd be very highly appreciated. Also, if you'd like to donate to the show, we have a couple options. Nothing is obligated. This is basically a glorified tip jar. If you're able to do it, and you think if you want to do it, I don't know how else to say it. Nothing is obligated here. I do have a Patreon for people that want to support monthly. Thank you to everybody that does. Now, PayPal is the easiest way to go because there's no hassle. It's a one-time thing. I don't expect people to get locked in Patreon, but I appreciate everybody that does. Also, I added a Streamlabs. I'm going to get the text-to-speech very soon once I'm a retard on certain things. I'm good at, diving in. But sometimes with these OBS settings, I don't know exactly what I'm doing. So Streamlabs is an option. If you donate through Streamlabs, I will read your comment on screen, obviously, and read it aloud. And if you donate through PayPal, your email pops up, and I usually just write back to you guys. So just want to say thank you to anybody that has done that or is going to do that. This is your one Jew for the next 2 hours. I'm allowed one per hour, actually, but you can't change the rules now. I'm allowed one tip jar suggestion. Someone said Patreon link. All of these links will be in the description. I never really share the Patreon link in the chat because I understand it's hard to get locked in on a monthly thing. When I donate to people, I use PayPal. The reason I use PayPal to donate to people is because it's very easy for me. It's it comes right out of my account. It's instant for the person I give it to. I can write them a note, and it's done. And the main reason I donate to other people, to shows that I watch and respect and like and think that deserve it, they get it instantly. But unlike Streamlabs and unlike Superchats and stuff like that, you're not getting like 35% of your money taken by Google. So that's why I give people on PayPal. I don't need them to see a Superchat. If I give them $10 through PayPal, they get $9.97. If I send them $10 through something else, they might get $6. So I feel like it goes a better, longer way for me to do it that way. But anyway, anybody wants to do it, not a big deal. Let's get back to what we're talking about. A clockwork orange career. Now, one thing I'm also going to say, anybody who makes websites like this would, look, you can't even see this shit. Watch this. This is how they set up their website. How am I supposed to read that shit? It's unbelievable. Like, why would you even make this? So, in a lawsuit currently before the Los Angeles Superior Court, it has come to light that UCLA, where this doctor was from, since the early 80s attempted to remove psychiatrist Louis Jolin West from the roster of the university's facility. Remember, we're talking about Louis West. One psychiatric colleague who asked to go unnamed described West as supremely arrogant and charged that he misused his position for his own ends. Many will not find such statements surprising, considering West himself, whose history includes controversial LSD experiments for the CIA, and even more controversial plans to construct secret installations for the study and modification by electric shock, chemical castration, and other means on the behavior of citizens, including and most particularly minorities. And this is exactly what we talked about. This is exactly what we talked about with the hippie movement. He would set up fake medical tents and fake crash pads for them so he could observe them, medicate them, run his experiments, and eventually mind control. And, I have to do it this way because you can't read this shit on this page. Alright, so, in a document released by FOIA, Freedom of Information, for example, it was revealed that more than 4 decades ago, the CIA sought to set West up in a clandestine laboratory to perform mind control experiments with hypnosis and LSD. A portion of the experiments with LSD and other drugs in which West was immersed at the CIA's behest were exposed in the 70s by the U.S. Senate. That's when some of the MK Ultra information came out. West contributed to the early work which resulted, among other things, the death of tennis pro Harold Blower in an experiment with mescaline. That was in 1953. The Senate Select Committee's investigation revealed drugging of unsuspecting targets, electric shocking to obliterate memory, and what did we talk about earlier when we watched TV? The programming of individuals to kill, acting under psychiatric control. Charles Manson. West's career highlights include injecting a 7,000-pound bull elephant named Tusco with an overwhelming dose of LSD, roughly 1,435 times the quantity in West's own words one would have given a human, to produce for several hours a marked mental disturbance. Now, obviously, they say elephants have a great memory. A lot is said about their brain, so they did a lot of testing with LSD and other things on elephants. You know, they don't just use monkeys and rats that we see. They use all different kind of animals because they want the smartest mammals or whatever they can use to get the best results. West had ingested the mind-altering substance himself shortly before killing Tusco, the prize of the Oklahoma City Zoo. We'll get to why he's connected to Oklahoma City for other reasons later. Prisons and laboratories. Now, they called him Jolly because his middle name was Jolin. He moved on, changing his base of operations from Oklahoma to Los Angeles. In keeping with intelligence proposals to utilize prisons and experimental laboratories as experimental laboratories, he drafted a plan to use electric shock and drugs on state inmates in what was called aversion therapy. Now, I don't mind this for homosexuals. We can't just be going around doing it to prisoners. A pet project of West in the 60s and 70s was the Center for the Study and Reduction of Violence, even though he was using it to mind control people to commit violence. He proposed to establish a securely fenced center at a remote, abandoned missile base in Santa Monica Mountains, in keeping with earlier plans by the CIA to set up, quote, mind control stations off the beaten path, where experimentation could be carried out free and from such concerns as human rights and decency and morality. We want to be free of that. An effort that would be comical if not for the bottom line of terms of human suffering. West's plans for such centers were subject of hearings by the U.S. Senate. Mind-bending drugs, electric shock, implementation of electrodes in the brain, forcible castration, drug psychosis. Critics charged that his violent centers would target mostly minorities, and he would also go out into the rich white suburban communities, and that's where he met one Charles Manson. Other sites selected for West Violent Centers, California, were Camarillo, Asadero, many hospitals throughout the area. West clearly aimed as an intelligence agency application, remote monitoring, and behavioral control. So you're going to see a lot of that throughout this. So let me move on to the next article here. Fascists in white coats, the CIA's Dr. Louis Jolin West, and the UCLA Neuropsychiatric Institute. Where's the last time you heard me say neuropsychiatric? It's when I brought you the story about HARPA, the Health Advanced Research Project Agency, that Ivanka Trump is working with Suzanne Wright Foundation to use your devices, your Fitbits, your Apple Watches, your cell phone, to check for neuropsychiatric signs. And once they have that data, they're going to use that to strip away your rights. Whatever you say in front of your phone, in front of your computer, in front of your Alexa. I don't have one, I'm just pointing to my window. I don't know why. They're probably listening to me. I can hear them. The room is vibrating. I can feel the frequencies. But you guys get what I'm saying. These time and tested techniques that they use are still going to be used today. Just we have better technology given to us at this time. In 1972, Dr. Louis West, a ranking CIA psychiatrist, also a director of the, quote, conservative American Family Foundation and the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, an organization founded by pedophile apologists that marginalizes victims of ritual abuse and libels their advocates, with an obsessive, excuse me one second, guys. Just want to make sure I have this on screen here. With an obsessive interest in mind control, proposed experimenting on the brains of blacks and Latinos to determine why these minorities are prone to violence. Well, we know why. Dr. West was the chief architect for the Center of Study and Reduction of Violence as director of the UCLA Neuropsychiatric Institute. After he shot Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby's psychosis was diagnosed by the same CIA doctor who had once killed an elephant with psychedelics. University of Oklahoma tells CIA drug test in the 50s. So Jack Ruby, the man who shot Harvey Oswald, was seen by the same doctor. Another thing that's very weird. A series of purposely brutalizing psychological experiments may have confirmed Ted Kaczynski's still-forming belief in the evil of science while he was in college. So, out of nowhere, in Harvard, he's an alumni of Harvard. This guy's talking about roaming the halls in Cambridge. He had a special interest in Kaczynski. For many years, he and I had lived parallel lives to some degree. Both of us attended public high schools, went on to Harvard, graduated at the same time, took many of the same courses. We were in the graduate students together, studying at Oxford, etc. In 1971, Kaczynski moved to Great Falls, Montana. That summer, he began building a cabin near the town of Lincoln. But in 1962, what was happening to Mr. Ted Kaczynski? The news that Kaczynski was included in the 50th anniversary alumni directee has roiled the class reunion. For all reporting about the 50th anniversary, an odd twist to the Harvard Unabomber story has not been mentioned. During Kaczynski's sophomore year at Harvard, 1959, he was recruited for a psychological experiment unbeknownst to him would last 3 years. The experiment involved psychological torment and humiliation. So he was put through these weird psychiatric rituals, and what do you know? 10 years later, he's building a cabin and plotting to start the Unabombs. You guys remember the Unabomber story that swept the nation. And again, you can always trace it back to some weird program at the university, funded through the CIA, that's tormenting this guy, humiliating him, hitting him up with drugs, stressing him, playing on his mind, playing on his emotions, probably seeing ghosts out there. The Harvard study aimed at psychic deconstruction by humiliating undergraduates and thereby causing them to experience severe stress. Kaczynski's anti-technological fixation and his critique itself had some roots in the Harvard curriculum. Exactly. They put him through this program, and then all of a sudden, he's committing these same acts. It's just weird that you can see all these connections, guys. This is from the Red Dirt Report. They're talking a little bit more about this Louis West, who killed this elephant with dosing him with way too much LSD. West is a decidedly controversial figure, and although he died over 12 years ago, his name pops up continually as a man who continually found himself at the center of major events. Listen to this list, guys. Visits over the years were made to Jack Ruby, later to Robert F. Kennedy's assassin, Sirhan Sirhan. Also, West would meet with Charles Manson, Patty Hearst, David Koresh. Are these names starting to sound familiar? All of these guys that just crazy cults all have a tie back to this same doctor. It would be his attacks on the Church of Scientology in 1980 that would come back to haunt West. He called the church a cult and L. Ron Hubbard a quack and a fake. Still, West's unconventional methods and Mengele-esque, Dr. Mengele, approaches to both animals and the human mind and body led him to be considered a dangerous man of medicine to this very day. And this is noted in a book called CIA Doctors, something you guys might want to read. Very interesting topics, and you don't get the cookie cutter mainstream media, even your alternative media source of events. So let's move on to a little bit more on the Unabomber. Give me one more second. I'm just going to make sure my links are all in order. Put this up. That's the Norse god holding the Hollywood. And after we get through, after we get through the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, and then we're going to go Tim McVeigh, then it's open season. I got CIA operations like Operation Cyclone, which started with the, quote, War on Terror. We have things about Operation Northwoods, which was a big deal during the Kennedy administration. I thought I lost that video because I made a 20-minute video on it from my main channel, Davey Crocko, that was terminated. But I found it. I had saved it somewhere. This is an old video of mine, so you'll enjoy that. We'll talk about Gary Webb. And if we have time, we'll talk about Cody Snodgrass. He's a quote-unquote whistleblower, but we have to see if we believe his story. We'll talk about actors and other celebrities that are involved in the CIA. So let's start with the Unabomber. Give me 1 second to pull this link up.
You're listening to the Corbett Report.
Obviously, shout out to James Corbett of the Corbett Report. Does great work. I'm going to be using one of his videos. I'm going to go full screen. This is called Did a CIA Experiment Create the Unabomber? So if you give me 1 second, I'm just going to pop my ugly ass off real quick. Let me see if this still works. Okay, this still works. Conspiracy theories and other dangerous ideas, guys. So let's just play this video, see what we think. Very quick video on this one.
Student volunteers in the cycle.
Tim Blackburn says, "What's up, Davey? No super chats on this channel. Let me explain everything about my channels. Davey Crocko 1, 10,000 subs, terminated. Davey Crocko 2 was linked to Davey Crocko 1 because of the same email. I'm locked out of that channel, but you can still view the videos. Davey Crocko 3, I have about 54 days until I'm allowed to stream on there again because of a content copyright ID, and Davey Crocko 3 does have monetization and super chats. This channel is not at 1,000 subs yet, so I can't even apply yet for it. The only reason I got monetization on Davey Crocko 3 is because the channel doesn't have a lot of videos. They have nothing to really censor yet. If you're wondering about donations to the channel, I already did my Jew for the hour, so I'm going to have to wait. But I will link in the chat for you if you're interested in that, if anyone's interested in that. It's not anything that's obligated to hang out here. You guys don't even have to like or share the videos. Just hang out, enjoy the work, enjoy everybody in the community, and let's just have a good time.
Psychological study must watch films of themselves being insulted.
Sure. Child playing with big ideas. Sir, I just wrote down what I think. I thought that was the point of the accusations.
What were you thinking at this point?
I was angry.
Angry.
During the interrogation, student heart rate, breathing, and skin resistance were measured. The boy, codenamed Lawful, recorded higher stress levels under questioning than any other participant.
This was a very intense kind of interrogation in which the individual's thoughts and feelings were directly attacked. It's hard to imagine that someone could go through this and come out undamaged.
The experiment that started over 3 years ago is finally over. Lawful graduates from Harvard, gets a PhD in math, and at age 25 takes a job teaching at Berkeley. But he also has violent nightmares.
You are sick. You are one sick little boy.
In 1969, he quits his job. He moves to a simpler life in Montana.
He gets more and more reclusive and distances himself from his family and develops this philosophy based on the idea that civilization and technology are incompatible, that technology is ruining individual human freedoms.
Oh, gonna have to pause that one, guys. They said that that's a copyright. I'm really getting sick of this. I mean, that's 2 minutes of a video that I'm commentating over. Last time they put that up, that's how I lost streaming on Davey Crocko 3. So, Science Channel, fuck you. I mean, honestly, are you kidding me? That we're trying to do a video on this and they're going to copyright me on that. I don't care about the copyright, but if they copyright content ID you during a stream, they shut your stream down and you can't stream for 90 days. So we're not going to play any more of that video. Basically, they're just explaining what I talked about in the article, which was the mind control operations and experiments that they did on the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. Let me pull my camera up real quick and change the scenery here. Let me show you this. If you guys are curious about Ted Kaczynski, a good book is Anti-Tech Revolution that Ted Kaczynski wrote, and you guys can see what he thought about the ever-growing technocracy that we're living under. All right.
Tim McVeigh was honorably discharged from the Army 3 years before the bombing, leaving behind an exemplary service record. After a brief but intense combat experience in the Persian Gulf War, McVeigh tried out for the Special Forces. He pronounced himself unable to continue just a few days into the testing and returned to his unit demoralized and, some say, a changed man.
Through being able to see Timothy McVeigh's letters to his defense team, this is really behind-the-scenes stuff, letters to his family, the memos that the defense team writes, which detail his mood from day to day, some of the medical reports while he's in prison, which detail his thoughts. On the one hand, you have the McVeigh who's mad at the government. On the other hand, you have...
Guess that sound was a Streamlabs donation. I just added that. Shitlordius says, "Hey Dave, you've been watching your streams for a while. This is my first dono. Great stuff, man. Cheers." Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
McVeigh who works for the government. The defense team themselves could never...
Just want to let you guys know there's downstairs I have people installing something. Next door there's some kind of event going on, so I hear music. If it's something that you guys can hear and it bothers you, just I apologize. But we're going to go on. Can you hear it? I swear to God I hear Feliz Navidad. Must be my neighbor or something. I don't know. It sounds annoying though.
Obtain
Let me know if you can hear that.
military records, and that even though they were ordered by a judge.
Can you guys hear that? That has to be loud as hell. Hey, good.
Where does he turn up? He turns up in Buffalo, New York.
They're putting it in my head,
and while he's
man.
up there, he creates what's known as a legend. Now, legend is when you go undercover or you get sheep dipped. Sheep dipped means you change your identity, you change your who you work for, and become a new person. Changes his personality up there, and all of a sudden he's ranting and raving about the Turner Diaries and overthrowing the government and all this other nonsense to where they're going, this guy's a wacko. He works up there 6 months and disappears. Where do we find him again? Going into militia meetings and doing the same thing, making sure he's noticed.
If you look at Lee Harvey Oswald and Tim McVeigh and other patsies, they're very similar. They're in the military. They've got security clearances.
McVeigh wrote a letter to his sister, who turned it over to the FBI, in which he admits that he was selected out of Special Forces training to participate in covert operations, to help run drugs to fund these operations, and to assassinate security risks.
So this is CIA ran. This is what the CIA does. They pluck people from a normal military job, whatever he was doing in the military, to a special forces designation. All of a sudden, he's being involved in drug running, which is obviously the CIA's staple. We know the stories from Mena, Arkansas, where Bill Clinton was the, Bill Clinton running this city. Where George Bush would have planes fly into a secret landing strip in Mena, Arkansas, where they would run the drugs in. Iran-Contra. They cheesed it up in a Tom Cruise movie, but we know the real story behind the scenes of the kids murdered on the tracks. We know about all the CIA's drug running, Freeway Ricky Ross, many stories that have proven over the years. Gary Webb, who reported on this drug running, was, quote, suicided, and actually Corvette Report put a video about him called Requiem for a Suicided, and very good video.
Mere bravado, or was McVeigh telling the truth?
The FBI had put wiretaps on the McVeigh family's phone after the bombing, and so I'm reading this conversation back and forth between his mother and his sister. There's actually a few of these conversations where they say, we don't understand why the FBI won't listen to us and why the media is reporting that Timothy McVeigh washed out or dropped out of Special Forces. They're saying, no, we were told that he was still active in the military and that he was working on these covert missions.
And he told his family, he told many others, Terry Nichols has signed an affidavit, that McVeigh believed he was out there infiltrating militias and right-wing groups and was preparing to set them up. And then, of course, he later learned that he was the guy that got set up.
If McVeigh was working for the government, what are we to make of the involvement of Terry Nichols, the only convicted accomplice?
When Nichols had been convicted, but not given the death penalty, in federal court and in state court, he could not be tried again. He wrote to then Attorney General Ashcroft and said, come and see me. Come and see me, and I'll tell you all about it.
In his declaration, Nichols stated that crucial parts of this terrorist attack remain hidden from the American people, especially the identities of others unknown who collaborated with McVeigh in the bombing. McVeigh told Nichols that he had been recruited to perform undercover missions while in the U.S. Army. Always the good soldier, McVeigh revealed only one name in his chain of command, Larry Potts, Assistant Director of the FBI and the lead agent on the Ruby Ridge catastrophe in 1992, in which a U.S. Marshal and 14-year-old Sam Weaver and his mother Vicki Weaver were killed. Larry Potts later played an active role in the siege at Waco. McVeigh was angry at Potts for going...
Yes, Alex Jones being in there, it's more for the clip. It's not a support of Alex Jones. He would be what you would call COINTELPRO. 80% truth, 20% over-the-top falsehoods to divert you and gatekeep.
Off script and changing targets at the last minute.
Thanks, Dennis.
Another telling clue is on tip.
Yeah, thanks to everybody that's saying it's a great show. I started working on this a few days ago, putting together all the links. So we're going to be going through this Timothy McVeigh. Once I get through the Timothy McVeigh stuff, we've basically made the case of the CIA, and they're working with these people and making them mind control slaves that went out and committed these atrocities. We can look to modern day people that go on mass shootings, but these are the famous cases that everyone knows about. that all have a link back to some kind of operation, seeing some kind of CIA psychiatrist that's working on them, either using electroshock, mind control techniques, drugging. It just all leads back to them. So once we get through Timothy McVeigh, I have a few other videos that we're going to go through and watch, and it'll be more of hanging out, looking through some of this information.
Tim McVeigh's death certificate. Despite being officially out of the military for
an hour flies by like that when you're going through great information like this.
9 years, and having held many different jobs since then, his listed occupation was U.S. Army. So why did Tim McVeigh take the fall for his accomplices? Perhaps the intervention of a known psychological...
Three of the, most major incidents in U.S. history as it involves lone wolf attacks back to the same doctor who works for the CIA. This is not a coincidence. This is something that more people need to look into and spread the information for.
The record clearly shows that Dr. Jolyon West consulted Timothy McVeigh's defense team. Dr. West had previously...
Yep, 33 shocked. Big Olive Oil says you didn't spend it on goats. No, I also didn't build a shed that's crooked. But, I wasn't breastfed until 21, so what do I know? It's just a small little brain, small little IQ in this head.
Previously been a psychiatrist and consultant for Patty Hearst, Saran, and Jack Ruby.
We know that Jolyon West was considered to be the #2 mind control expert in North America under only Dr. Ewan Cameron.
Dr. West came on...
Ewan Cameron was the face of the mind control MK-Ultra for America. Sidney Gottlieb was the face for Canada. That's the publicly accepted MK-Ultra doctor.
Under a lot of scrutiny during his time as chief of psychiatry at UCLA because he was proposing using prisoners, the general community, poor people, minorities as test subjects. And then West's career continues to flourish through the 80s, and he continues his research into hypnosis, branches out into
Tavistock,
terrorism and cults, even consulting and later writing about the Waco massacre.
And meeting with David Koresh. Also, when he's using these mind control in the 80s, the same time as quote-unquote satanic panic. So, this is a very long video on Tim McVeigh, which I'm going to share in the chat with you guys because it's an hour long. But I'm just going to find some excerpts from it. Let's see here.
Found a near perfect.
But beyond the physical resemblance to McVeigh, Professor Michael Blumgren of the University of Utah conducted a voice analysis of the tape and found an 86% match between the person speaking on the tape and audio of McVeigh's interview on 60 Minutes.
I ended up going to Professor Blumgren at the University of Utah, who's in the speech pathology department. He did a voice forensics test. He did various computer and scientific tests on it, and did human voice analysis tests also. His final report to me was that he would testify in a court of law that this is Timothy McVeigh. He had compared it to a 60 Minutes interview and found a near-perfect, near-exact match.
This footage is possible corroboration of McVeigh's story, but it is only that.
So here's Timothy McVeigh working with the military, which they tried to deny. They tried to deny his service, even though he was caught on footage speaking, and they compared it, found it was a match. They still would deny this. Let me move on here a little bit.
Was launched to find the 2 men who were reported as having rented and driven the Ryder truck to its destination. John Doe number 1 was soon identified as McVeigh, but John Doe number 2, his accomplice, remained at large.
Who is John Doe number 2, and where is he? Employees at the truck rental business in Kansas also helped with a sketch of a man who they say was with McVeigh, a square-jawed suspect with a tattoo on his left arm.
Could be James Comey. Heard rumors about that one.
Concluded that the FBI crime lab had improperly identified the characteristics of ANFO, the weight of the bomb, the detonation system, and even what kind of explosive was used.
But perhaps even more importantly, the missing surveillance tapes from the Murrah building threaten to reveal the identity of John Doe number 2. And as it turns out, there is every reason to believe that the missing accomplice in the case is, exactly as McVeigh himself alleged, a government informant, agent, or operative.
So again, this was another crime perpetrated by the CIA, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and the Department of Justice, all with their patsy that they've mind-controlled throughout the years, Timothy McVeigh. Let me move on to a couple more links here. Like I said, that's the bulk of the information. Now, I do have what they call a whistleblower. Yes, no chance a truck bomb caused that much damage. Much like 9/11, there was stuff already planted in the building. We can talk a little bit about Gary Webb, who wrote about the CIA, and I'm going to try to play a little bit. I'm going to try to play a little bit of this quote-unquote whistleblower, Cody Snodgrass, about the Oklahoma City bombing. I just have to find the exact video.
So, getting 30 months in prison. He was sentenced in January 2013. So we don't want to put out anybody's name or anything. All we want to do is talk about stuff that's old and people that are inactive or dead. And so that's what this story, the caveat is. That we're not doing anything.
Let me know how this sounds, because that's as loud as it goes. I could probably turn up my OBS, but if you can hear it, just let me know in the chat.
Illegal here.
I focus so much of my life trying to let the truth do the work in a totally non-violent way. Just go into the belly of the beast, aim the light at the darkest of the dark, and let healing happen like that. And this is...
Oh, someone made a good point in the chat. Remember when the first search result for the Federal Reserve was the Corbett Reports video? Yeah, funny story behind that. Someone tweeted at YouTube that was the video. Who tweeted that out? Give me 1 second, because it's an important name. Give me 1 second. Man, it was a congressman. YouTube manipulated this. So he had the #1 video. And the whistleblower, YouTube manipulated the Federal Reserve results. Oh yeah, it was Chris Hayes of MSNBC who tweeted out, oh, I looked up the Federal Reserve. What if a student looks up Federal Reserve and they get this crazy conspiracy information? And what did YouTube do? They deranked the biggest video explaining the Federal Reserve to like the 100th result. So this is why we can't trust anybody in big tech.
The way I see you is that you come from the same point, and that is why I feel so honored to be here with you. But
came in and whispered in my ear, there's someone here to see you. And I said, what is it? And he said, it's a job interview. And it was in the fall semester. I said, well, you know, the job guys don't usually come till May when the students are getting out of school. You know, who is here? He whispered, he said, it's the CIA, that he's down there alone and wants to talk to you alone. And so...
So we're going to listen to this little excerpt from a whistleblower that claims to be, that worked for the CIA, who was involved in the Murrah building OKC bombing, who denied and declined the offer. For over 20 years, he was an independent contractor, specializing in sensitive covert assignments as well as a bodyguard. In '94, he was given the task to blow up the Alfred P. Murrah building in Oklahoma City. The job came from an ex-U.S. military man who told me he worked covertly for the CIA. He refused on moral grounds. By showing opposition to attacking U.S. citizens on our own soil, changed my status from CIA asset to liability. So that's basically the story. We can listen to a little bit of this, then we'll watch a little bit about Gary Webb, who wrote about the CIA and was then suicided. And then from there, we'll see how much time we have left. But I hope you guys are enjoying the stream so far.
After a while, I explained that I did not, want to work for the government. I had kind of a revulsion for that. So he said, well, we can work something out. And so some time went by. And I had become involved with some Vietnam veterans, some of them which did work for the CIA over in Vietnam, and they've been back to the States. And they began training me in all kinds of things. And so you fast forward about 1979, and I began working on my, I graduated with a double bachelor's of science degree in mathematics and physics, both. So then I went to graduate school at Stephen F. Austin State University in Texas in 1979 to work on my master, like a domestic operation to bomb the Murrah building or whatever it was. Their regular CIA agents and officers they wouldn't have any blowback. They had the cutouts in between them who actually worked for the CIA and then people out in the black ops world who had no tie to them. And that way it maintained plausible deniability.
Yeah,
so there's a huge bunch of that, and the contractors that work for Eric Prince's like Blackwater, a lot of the guys are like that. They're ex-military, they get the training, they don't get paid much in the military, and then they go out into this black ops world, and they take jobs, and then they can get a lot of money.
So this is from Ole Damagard's website. If you're not someone familiar with Ole Damagard, he's had some good light on conspiracies speeches that he's given. That's Cody Snogridge talking. Here is the link to that exact interview. You can find it on Vimeo as well. A lot of these get taken down. You guys can come to your own conclusion about his story of being a whistleblower, working for the CIA, being approached, and then being a not just an asset, but a liability who was going to have to be taken out for revealing secrets and denying to be involved in what would eventually be Timothy McVeigh's bombing of the building. Just another patsy they set up, just like Lee Harvey Oswald, just like Charles Manson, just like Ted Kaczynski. We've gone through all these people now who somehow all have ties to the CIA and some kind of psychiatric training. We're going to play a little bit of this Requiem for a Suicide. In 1987, the Kerry Committee hearing exposed the CIA Drugs for Arms operation established to fund the right-wing Nicaraguan Contra rebels, Iran-Contra.
Because it showed they weren't doing their jobs.
This is Gary Webb, a journalist who actually spoke out about this.
It was a fraud.
Initially hailed by the mainstream media as a journalist's coup.
It's no exaggeration to say that Gary Webb's reporting in the Dark Alliance series was groundbreaking and shook the foundations of a number of American institutions, including, of course, the Central Intelligence Agency and mainstream journalism, which had for years neglected all of the numerous leads in this story that continued to tie back to the CIA bringing drugs into the country. Gary Webb was by no means the only person drawing attention to these facts, but the Dark Alliance series, boosted by the groundbreaking website that the San Jose Mercury News, a regional newspaper with a very limited circulation, set up for the series, pushed this information into the mainstream in a way that mainstream journalists could not ignore. But as always, when a story this explosive...
Now, this is a very important part of the story because you not only see what happens to the patsies, you see what happens to the people who try to break this, try to break stories and tell you what's really happening. We've lost investigative journalism in this country. We've lost the people digging for the hard-hitting stories. We've lost the whistleblowers because they're all shunned by the American media if they come forward. They're looked at as defectors and traitors other than actual patriots. That's how they rule over us. That's why I spoke right in the beginning of this video about what it's really about. The programming. That's why they call television programming Hollywood, the wood of the holly. That's what a magician's wand is made out of. A series, the pilots, all of these words have other meanings when it comes to programming our minds, and that's how they get us to look at someone breaking a world-changing news story like Iran-Contra, and he becomes the enemy. He's not hailed as a hero. He's hailed as a hero in circles like ours, but in the mainstream media and in the world of, abroad, broadcasting, casting spells broadly, in that world, they can write anything they want about him, and the main majority of the public will eat it up. Excuse me 1 second. Oh, that's a subscription from Tits McGee. So I guess it's going to make that noise every time there's either someone subscribes or a Streamlabs donation. So maybe that's something I can change and make it a different noise, something special to this channel and special to us in the chat. Streamlabs is an option to donate. PayPal is the other option. But, whatever. Just throwing it out there for you guys. Tits McGee says, "Sup, homie?" Yeah, sup, buddy. Thanks for subscribing. Hope you enjoy the channel. Now, we also, our main channel is Davey Crocko 3. We're just on a stream ban there right now, so we stream here. But we do put videos up on Davey Crocko 3, and we do put up mirrors of some of the streams. But a lot of videos go up on Davey Crocko 3. A lot of my other work. I also have Bitchute, D-Live, Joshu TV. I'm all over the place. So I laughed at somebody yesterday when he said, "Oh, you just make videos about Owen." They have no idea what this channel is about. They have no idea the work we've put in over here. They have no idea that we lost a 10,000 subscriber channel, that we talk about everything. Yeah, it's fun to look at Owen and laugh at him, but I'm calling him out because of the schemes and scams, not because, he's just a retard that says stupid shit. I'm looking to get this guy fucking for IRS tax evasion. I'm looking to get this guy for screwing many of retards out of money. Same with Vox Day. That's why I'm in it. Whatever anybody else's reason, just like laughing at him or whatever, I'm in it to take this motherfucker down. I don't want him deplatformed. I don't want him removed. I want his retarded ass to keep saying the stupid shit until he paints himself in a corner with his illegal activities. That's what I'm about. Someone said 33 likes. Yeah, it's alright, man. This is a small channel because I'm building it up. We'll get to 1,000 soon. Look at all my channels, man. We got Davey Crocko, 10,000 subs, gone. Davey Crocko 2, they locked me out of it. It's got like almost 2,000 subs. Davey Crocko 3 is over 1,000 subs. This channel will be over 1,000 subs. If people like the information, they'll keep coming back. They will keep coming back, and they respect the honesty. They respect that I'm real with you guys, and that's why people come back. And anybody that hates on it, I respect them too, and I say, it's not your cup of tea, that's fine. I don't go after people that disagree with me in my chat. I don't ban people that disagree with me in my chat. I look at their opinion, I disagree or agree with them, or look at their point of view, and then I move on. I don't make a big deal about chat things like some channels do, man. Like you get lost in the sauce on that kind of stuff. Oh, let me put that back to a smaller screen here. Someone says, Davey definitely isn't a one-trick pony hitting mini subject. Yeah, but they just see... I think if a video about Owen does well, it actually gets recommended off of 5 other videos to finally get recommended, and that's what they see, so that's what they know. It is what it is. You know what I mean? I don't care if that's what people think, and I don't need to convince people. Everybody that's here, that's been following me for a while, knows that we love digging into all sorts of subjects, and the reason I started a channel was because of the natural divide I started seeing, and the movement away from looking into truth and what the quote-unquote truth community turned into. Electro Existence says, you know full well when I said Christianity implies Christian people acting in the described manner. Oh, I didn't know what you guys were talking about in the chat. Maybe something about fake Christians online, I'm assuming. And then you just said Jew. Okay. I don't know what that is, but okay. Dennis says, we love you, no homo. Oh, be homo. The only thing I ask is don't spam a lot of stuff, don't repeat a lot of stuff, and stuff like that. I'm not going to ban you over it, but it's it gets annoying for everybody, and it turns people away from wanting to be here. So if people are turned off by someone specific being here, then I have to address it. Other than that, just have it away.
Is pushed into the mainstream spotlight, it is inevitable that the hit pieces will begin.
Those charges came from this man, reporter Gary Webb of the San Jose Mercury News. He became one of the most talked about journalists in the country. His story, the most controversial of the past year, because after investigating the origins of the crack epidemic, he claimed he found a link leading right to the CIA.
Men who were working for the CIA's army were responsible for bringing all that cocaine in Los Angeles that sparked the crack epidemic.
The CIA's army, Webb says, were the Contras, the anti-communist rebels fighting the government of Nicaragua back in the 1980s, an army founded and funded by the CIA. Webb wrote that some Contra supporters smuggled cocaine to America to raise money for their cause.
The CIA has been bringing drugs into this country.
As then CIA Director John Deutsch discovered, it's an accusation that rings true for many, especially for some in the African American community. And Webb's story has taken on a life of its own. On the talk show circuit and the internet, some have even gone beyond Webb's charges to accuse the CIA of conspiring to target young African Americans.
Was the CIA willing to poison our cities with crack cocaine?
On the basis of what you learned, do you believe that there was a conscious decision, a meeting where someone sat down and said, we're going to poison the youth of Black America and here's how we're going to do it?
No, I don't. These guys were looking to raise money, and I don't think it mattered to them where they did it. They just went where they could raise the money.
Gary Webb says his stories were largely based on the testimony of a drug dealer with Contra connections who became a U.S. government witness. But 9 months after the series was published, the controversy continues. Some of the heavyweights of American journalism have examined Webb's work and found it reckless, often wrong. Just this week, Webb was pulled off the CIA story after his own executive editor admitted the articles oversimplified the origins of the crack epidemic and left out important conflicting evidence. He also wrote, I feel that we did not have proof that top CIA officials knew. But despite the evidence to the contrary, Gary Webb insists his stories were substantially accurate. And many Americans do seem willing to believe that their own government could have been involved in drug smuggling. So was the U.S. government involved in any way? Dateline decided to take a second look. Crack use spread like wildfire in the early 1980s. And in Los Angeles, a drug dealer known as Freeway Ricky Ross was in the middle of it. Prosecutors called Ross the Walmart of crack. He made millions in the early 80s dealing to Los Angeles street gangs. Police say he was among the first to take expensive cocaine powder and cook it into low-cost, highly addictive crack.
So they're talking about Freeway Ricky Ross. They're talking about, the rise of the epidemic of this coming into our country. And where did it come from? Where did it come from? Well, it came from Iran-Contra and many other drug smuggling operations through the CIA. Actually storing it in the caskets of dead soldiers, carrying it back in their planes. Landing in airstrips all around the country. One was Mena, Arkansas, which was witnessed by 2 kids who ended up being killed. You can see that from the kids on the tracks.
In this case. But the fact that large corporate-controlled outlets like Dateline even had to cover this story is a testament to the impact that the Dark Alliance series had on mainstream journalism at the time. From the time of the publication of the Dark Alliance series onwards throughout the 1990s, there was a flood of information corroborating the entire story.
There is fresh momentum in Washington tonight for more thorough investigation of accusations about the CIA and drugs. Accusations never proved or disproved. At issue, did the CIA, during the 1980s, look the other way while profits from the sale of crack cocaine in inner cities were funneled to the Contra rebels in Nicaragua? These charges have galvanized African-American leaders and some others who are determined to force official Washington to take another look. David Martin has the latest on this.
A protest today by former drug enforcement agent Celerino Castillo outside the headquarters of the DEA.
They're trying to hide the truth from the people.
The latest chapter in a saga which began during the Reagan administration when a CIA agent stumbled out of the Nicaraguan jungle and admitted he'd been running arms to the Contra rebels. It's an allegation that will not go away.
While the Contras and their associates
imported and sold tons of cocaine in the United States to help finance their war in Nicaragua, the CIA and DEA knew about it and looked the other way.
Cocaine which ended up as crack on the streets of Los Angeles. Black activists like Dick Gregory say that would be unforgivable.
Nothing in the history of this planet is as foul as what we're about to uncover.
The allegation has been investigated and re-investigated by congressional committees and by Special Prosecutor Lawrence Walsh. Now it's being investigated again.
I regard these allegations with the utmost seriousness. They go to the heart, the integrity of the CIA enterprise.
There is no new evidence. This former DEA agent who appeared today at an Overflow News conference has been making the same charge for the past 2 years.
The CIA and the DEA knew that the Contra pilots were involved in narcotics trafficking.
But the old evidence has become a cause célèbre in the black community.
The CIA and others have nullified the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves, and have instituted a new and worse form of slavery through chemical warfare.
The CIA's investigation of itself is not likely to change many minds. But both the Justice Department and the House Intelligence Committee have also ordered probes into what has to be one of the most thoroughly investigated episodes in American history. David Martin, CBS News, Washington.
One of the most startling corroborations of the Gary Webb Dark Alliance series came from, surprisingly enough, the CIA itself. In 1998, the CIA's Inspector General himself delivered 2 volumes of information on the subject, detailing explosive corroborating evidence to back up what Gary Webb had been alleging to a large extent, including a description of how the Reagan-Bush administration had protected more than 50 Contras and other drug traffickers, and by so doing, thwarted federal investigations into drug crimes.
And this is something you see all the time in any major case that we're seeing. It could be something as like the Epstein case. It could be a major false flag like 9/11. It could be Iran-Contra, the JFK assassination. The people that perpetrate the crime, the people that are responsible for the crime, are always the ones that are investigating the crime. So therefore, no one can ever be prosecuted for these crimes except for the patsy that the CIA or other intelligence agencies put in place, i.e. Jeffrey Epstein. Dennis Rice says, "Isn't it great the CIA was willing to ruin parts of our country to defeat communists on another continent?" Yeah, you can even look to something like Operation Cyclone, where the CIA gets involved and they start these proxy wars. Our government trains people like the Mujahideen and Bin Laden. They become an asset to us. Then eventually they become a patsy. It is a very, very well crafted, well thought out plan and template that they put in place for all of their activities. And we see it time and time and time again play itself out.
The National Security Archive at George Washington University even hosts a web page of source documents detailing the evidence for these charges compiled from declassified documents, including the notebooks kept by National Security Council aide and Iran-Contra figure Oliver North, mail messages written by high-ranking Reagan administration officials, memos from the Contra war effort, and FBI and DEA reports. And I would highly suggest people go to the documentation section for today's episode on CorbettReport.com to take a look at this page, which contains documentation of official U.S. knowledge of drug trafficking and the Contras, and evidence that NSC staff supported using drug money to fund the Contras. Indeed, Gary Webb, the lowly reporter from a small regional newspaper, had pulled off a journalistic feat so breathtaking that it could hardly be believed, which is perhaps why it largely wasn't. Even after the CIA Inspector General's internal investigation in 1998 that concluded that there was Reagan-Bush administration collusion to aid and abet drug runners as part of their Iran-Contra operations, the mainstream news refused to report on that investigation.
And that's how the mainstream media works. Now we can listen to Gary Webb himself talk a little bit. A few years before he was suicided.
8 miles away from where Gary Webb lived.
Right after we published the stories, the support we got from the media was very favorable. Newsweek magazine did a big piece on the story and said it was well documented and well researched. The website was getting like 1 million hits a day. There were marches in Watts, there were marches in Compton, there were candlelight vigils. Every California senator demanded an official investigation. So the story itself was really building momentum. The government reaction was no reaction. And this, I believe, was a very careful strategy because nobody was going to believe the government if they came out and said we didn't do it. The proof was fairly overwhelming since we had all these government documents showing that it had happened. So what happened was they let the so-called liberal press speak for them. And they had the national security reporters at the Washington Post, who coincidentally used to work for the CIA, write stories saying, it doesn't mean anything.
And this is how they shut stuff down. CIA assets, Mockingbird Media, sprinkled out throughout newspapers at the time and TV shows at the time, but now they have spread their wings to online publications. What you guys think would be alternative media in places like Bitchute or YouTube or any alternative Vimeo. They've embedded themselves with agents everywhere possible.
Length on prisonplanet.com in the days and weeks following the apparent suicide. And perhaps...
Well, Gary was never satisfied with the way everything had turned out. From my understanding, he wasn't through working on the case. He was still digging and searching, trying to find the documents that would put everything together. Now, I know that for a fact that he hadn't stopped working on the case. He was still investigating.
What do you think? Where do you think it may have led if he would have kept going?
Who knows? I mean, with so much stuff and so many people being implicated that, we don't know where it would have ended. Only God knows.
Was Gary Webb suicided to kill new book?
So Gary Webb, after putting all this information out and being shut down by the mainstream media, shunned by the mainstream media, other than being, applauded by the wider community and the country as a whole, he was shunned. That was Freeway Ricky Ross, a major part of the drug running operation, saying that he personally spoke to Gary Webb. He was still investigating this and was coming out with a new book with new documents and information. Well, Gary Webb was found dead, apparently, of a suicide, and none of that information, they said, was never found. It didn't exist. He wasn't researching into it. He just became bitter at the U.S. government and decided to commit suicide. So this is what the CIA is about. I'll let James Corbett read a little bit of this.
December 27th, 2004. Quote, before all articles, legitimate questions, and informed speculation critical of Webb's alleged confirmed suicide are automatically tossed in the memory hole or are destined to endlessly travel through the conspiracy belt, I have some new and important revelations that need to be factored into the Gary Webb death equation, including information that he was working on a new book that he would soon finish. And what would people think about Gary Webb's official, airtight, confirmed suicide pronouncement if they were to read an email containing a recollected conversation between John Rowland and Gary Webb about this very subject, the possibility of Webb's being suicided, where Webb confirms that if he's found dead, it would never be a suicide.
So there you go. And that is always something that someone like a respected journalist like Gary Webb would put out there. He would make sure that people that can get his information out would know that he would never commit suicide. Yet, we are to believe he was suicided. I think we've done a very good job here breaking down the CIA operations, the mind control patsies. I'll just ask you guys in the chat before we get out of here. Would you like to watch this is a 17-minute video. We wouldn't play all of it, but this is a video I put together on Operation Northwoods. This would be the CIA's plan to, overthrow, make a false flag attack and make it look like it came from Cuba. If you guys are interested in watching that, let me know. I can play this video. It's something I put together 2 years ago. I thought I lost it to the memory hole, but I was able to find it on an old Facebook page. So I'm very happy that I was able to find that. I'm down to play it. I do have about 20 minutes left to hang out with you guys. That'll be about a 2-hour mark for us, which is a great stream. I think everything turned out very well. We had no buffering. I did upgrade my Wi-Fi recently. Cleaned everything out of the computer. Got some new cleaning software. Upgraded the microphone. So just thank you to everybody that's made even the smallest of donations, all the way up to anybody that sent a larger amount, because it really helps. On top of what I make from my IRL work, it helps to get a little, donations here and there, so I can match it with my money and upgrade stuff for everybody. So I see people are interested in watching that video. Just gonna quickly throw in the chat if you want to help out the channel. That's the way you can do it. But we will. Big Alboy says good stream, unexpected surprise. Big Alboy, are you newer to the channel, or just you're saying unexpected because it's early in the day for a deep dive CIA stream? But we will play this video. It is from Facebook video, so that's going to be the size of it and how it looks, but I think it's big enough for everyone to see. I'm really glad you guys enjoyed it. I love when I put together a deep dive stream and everything works out perfectly and you guys like it. So thank you. Thank you guys for being here. Samuel says, sure. Now again, let me tell you something else about this video. I made this 2 years ago on my phone, or on a phone, not my current phone, but my phone at the time. So 2 years ago, on probably Galaxy Note 5 or something I think I had, through Power Director, an app on my phone, I made this video. So you tell me about the quality of it. I think it doesn't look that bad.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society.
Deception was the rule of the land at that time. This is when they had the Operation Northwoods thing that had been passed. And if you haven't seen that document, that's crazy.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Anyone new, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be reading the Operation Northwoods document. If you're not familiar, or if you are familiar, this is just a reminder of what our government is capable of. Operation Northwoods was a proposed false flag operation against the Cuban government that originated with the U.S. Department of Defense and Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States government in 1962. The proposals called for the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, or other U.S. government operatives to commit acts of terrorism against American civilians and military targets, blaming it on the Cuban government and using it to justify a war against Cuba. I want to thank Wyatt Earp for the donation. Appreciated very much. When that sound dinged, guys, did that show up on the screen for you guys? Did you see anything flash on the screen as far as someone donated? Because I wasn't watching the stream. I wasn't watching my OBS. I tried to put in a thing that says it's going to flash when a donation comes in through Streamlabs. Just let me know if you guys actually saw that. If not, I'll work on uploading that widget or however I got to do it. No, it didn't come up. Alright, well, I did put it in the browser. The chat worked fine, but I guess that part didn't work. But I'm sure I can figure out how to do that. It'll be easy enough to make a fix. Maybe because it's near where the chat is. There's some kind of overlap there that messed it up. But definitely gonna be making sure that all that goes well. I'll probably make it text-to-speech. I'm kind of retarded when it comes to the OBS stuff, so I just need to learn how to do it. I got the chat down, which is nice, but other than that, I gotta learn how to input some of these widgets and make it visible for you guys. Just want to make sure that you guys are getting the credit you deserve if you do send a donation. And if you send one privately through PayPal, it's obviously appreciated, and I I'll always send a personal email back to people that do stuff like that. Usually end up becoming pretty close with people, and we share links and chat about stories that we want to talk about. People give me suggestions, or just leave a nice note, and they don't even want the recognition, which is, all good. Someone asked, what software do you use to screen share and pull internet clips? I'm using OBS, and it just shows whatever I'm showing on my screen. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. Stuart McKenzie, did you get the link from Discord this morning? I would have to check again. If you posted it on my Discord, I got it. I've been doing a lot of getting ready for the stream this morning, though, so I haven't really dug into it. Legend, Owen Benjamin style, says, thanks for the content, Crocko, $3. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, buddy.
The plans detailed in the document included the possible assassination of Cuban embassies, sinking boats of Cuban refugees on the high seas, hijacking planes, blowing up a U.S. ship, and orchestrating violent terrorism against U.S. cities. So, that's just a small sample of what our government is capable of and the plans they come up with. Pictured here is the front page of the document, and I will be reading through the majority of the entire document, so I will leave the link to the PDF in the description, and you can read along at home if you'd like. Number 1. The Joint Chiefs of Staff have considered the attached memorandum for Chief of Operations Cuba Project, which responds to a request of that office for brief but precise description of pretext which would provide justification for the U.S. military intervention in Cuba. Number 2. The Joint Chiefs of Staff recommend that the proposed memorandum by forward as a preliminary submission suitable for planning purpose. It is assumed that there will be similar submissions from other agencies and that these inputs will be used as a basis for developing a time-phased plan. Individual projects can then be considered on a case-by-case basis. Number 3. Further, it is assumed that a single agency will be given the primary responsibility for developing military and paramilitary aspects of a basic plan. It is recommended that this responsibility for both overt and covert military operations be assigned to Joint Chiefs of Staff. And this is sent to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and signed by them. And here, right on the first page of the document, they give you the problem. This is part of problem, reaction, solution. Number 1, we've already covered. So, facts bearing on the problem. It is recognized that any action which becomes a pretext for U.S. military intervention in Cuba will lead to a political decision, which then would lead to military action. Cognizance has been taken of a suggested course of action proposed by the U.S. Navy relating to generated instances in the Guantanamo area. 4. For additional facts, see Enclosure B, and we are going to be going through that. The suggested course of action appended to Enclosure A are based on the premise that U.S. military intervention will result from a period of heightened U.S.-Cuba tension, which placed the United States in the position of suffering justifiable grievances. World opinion and the United Nations Forum should be favorably affected by developing the international image of Cuban government as rash and irresponsible, and as an alarming and unpredictable threat to the peace of the Western Hemisphere. Number 6. While the foregoing premise can be utilized at the present time, it will continue to hold good only as long as there is a reasonable certainty that the U.S. military intervention in Cuba would not directly involve from the Soviet Union. As yet, no bilateral mutual...
You can hear that phone I'm using kind of cutting off and on there.
...support agreement binding the USSR to the defense of Cuba. Cuba has not yet become a member of the Warsaw Pact, nor have the Soviets established Soviet bases in Cuba in the pattern of the U.S. bases in Western Europe. Therefore, since time appears to be an important factor in resolution of the Cuba problem, all projects are suggested within the time frame of the next few months.
So, what Operation Northwoods was, and I just wanted to play a portion of that video, was a plan by the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the highest level wanted JFK to sign off on this, which would bomb a U.S. facility, some kind of attack on U.S. soil, and they would blame it on Cuba as a way for our military to intervene into Cuba. They talked about taking down an airliner, blowing up buildings. This sound very familiar to things like 9/11. With that said, I think it's time for me to go eat some lunch. Dennis says, you have the best approach, no holds barred truth, while at the same time not taking yourself too seriously. Yeah, I don't spurg out about things, but I do get passionate about certain topics, covering up information, brainwashing U.S. citizens, drugging people against their will. You know, I get pretty worked up about things like that. But then we also have a lighter side where we talk about, you know, retards that we want to make fun of online. So we run the gambit here, and, you know, I appreciate everybody that comes here and watches the show. The donations are a glorified tip jar. The channels, there's a lot of channels out there that promise people stuff or tell you they're getting specific something with the money you send and it never happens, or they tell you they're going to send you something, they never do. It was just the other day, 2 months ago, Owen and Vox were selling $50 t-shirts for his comedy tour from 2.5 months ago. People still don't have those shirts. Steven Crowder. Remember that whole slap fight he had with the gay guy from Vox, and he sold all the mugs? People still haven't got the mugs from that. So a lot of these people that promise stuff, I mean, that's just a way to entice people to donate money, but they're never getting anything in return. And when they do get it, it is shit. Am I not getting a book? You might. You might get some kind of book. Corporate Cancer. I'm writing it now. Don't worry, it's coming. Just make sure you, give to my Patreon, and then eventually you'll get a book. I'll send you an e-copy, some words on a page for fucking $20. The people are ridiculous. One thing I am gonna do is just go out of pocket and maybe get like 10 to 15 shirts made. You know, I'm just gonna go buy them and get that whole process, see how much it costs. I'll give a few away, and then whatever the cost of the shirts are, I'll probably sell them for the same price plus whatever the shipping is, just to start off. In case anybody wants a shirt. And we're going to work on designs. I'm going to talk to Bally Song. This will probably happen at the beginning of next year. And, just go buy like 15 shirts at some point and, go from there. But it won't be something that I'm promising to people or making people buy for an extreme amount of money. It'll be at whatever the cost of the shirt is plus a couple bucks for, whatever my troubles are as far as travel and sending them out and stuff like that. The book is unauthorized. Yeah. Well, you guys heard that Vox Day admitted that he can't stream there, right? I still have to talk to Johnny about what time we're going to go later, but assume that it's going to be late night as always. 10, 11, midnight, something like that. I haven't talked to him today, but I'll shoot him a message in a little bit. But let's just, show that, what I'm talking about with schemes and scams. Start with the t-shirt one, if I can find it. He loads so many clips. Give me 1 second, just gotta find the, here's one, I know that's one. Him admitting that you can't stream on unauthorized and you never will, which is, pretty shocking to hear. Obviously, we knew this all along, but for him to tell somebody that's a fan of his, when can you stream on unauthorized? And I asked Owen specifically, and he said, well, we're working on it. They've always told this story that they're working on it. They need more money, blah, blah, blah. So they put $50 t-shirts up September 8th. It is now, it is 2 months and 2 days. November 10th. Yesterday was 9/11 backwards.
We always want to make sure that we deliver. Let's see. Yeah, we did have a t-shirt sub bundle. We need to get that out we need to get those out.
$50 for that fucking shirt.
We're behind on the t-shirt thing.
Oh, you're a little behind, are you? 15 to 20 to 25 is like, not 15, I don't know if anyone, someone might do 15 for like one of their cheaper shirts, but like 20 to 25 bucks, the highest I've ever seen is 30. And that's probably just because of some kind of weird shipping cost where the person is from. $25 is like the average, I would say, that you would buy a shirt online. $20 to $25. I don't know what you guys think. That seems like the normal going rate for people that sell T-shirts. I think that's a Teespring number. So they're talking double the money, which is the normal.
For several things, including on the Owens tour. Not at all Crypto Fashion's fault. It's that
yeah, but this is what they do. Same thing with Crowder and the mugs. And guys with this much money like Steven Crowder, they're so fucking cheap. They wait for the influx of orders to come in and then make the mugs. I'm not saying he should have 20,000 of them ready, but you should have 1,000 on standby if you look at your monthly numbers of how much you're selling, to just have them ready to ship. The fact that you would not have them ready. Remember how long ago that Carlos Mazza thing was with Vox and Steven Crowder? People still don't have their mugs from that. How crazy is that? They didn't make up 50 shirts to be ready to sell them. No, they got the orders in. Then they didn't even get the shirts made yet. They didn't even go and spend the money to get the shirts made. They scammed people out of money. They got $50 a shirt, and they didn't get a shirt.
I'm trying to make sure we get the numbers correct and so forth. I mean, frankly, if people would like stop deplatforming Owen or something, that would.
Fucking Owen has a channel that he streams from with 290,000 subscribers. He nukes his own channels on purpose. He'll nuke a backup third channel on purpose so he can say that he's being deplatformed. He's verified on Instagram. It's unfucking believable the way they make it sound. Vox Day himself has a members only, 30,000 sub members only chat that you have to pay $5 to join to be a member. It's unbelievable that these guys act like they're deplatformed when they're not. Why don't you stream on unauthorized then? You built a streaming site, why aren't you streaming there? I don't want to get too worked up. Well, I'll save it for later. But yeah, $50 t-shirts they're behind on. And here's Vox Day explaining that you'll never stream on unauthorized.
Any idea when unauthorized will have live streaming enabled? Vox Day's answer: no need for it.
No need for it. No need for it. Thank you, Vox. Well, just want to say I appreciate everybody hanging out. I think that was a good time. We hit the exact 2-hour mark for a nice early stream in the day. It's not early anymore. It's 1:30 where I'm at, and I'm fucking hungry. So, lastly, I will put in the chat, since we hit the second hour, ways to support the channel if anyone's interested. Nothing's expected, nothing's obligated, but it's always obviously appreciated. The best way to go is PayPal. It's the easiest to manage. It's like the quickest to, just fucking, you hit a button and it's done. But if anybody wants to use Streamlabs or Patreon, I don't push the Patreon out because I know how hard it is for people to, it's hard for me, it's hard for everybody to, justify a monthly thing to somebody, so I don't push that one out. I just leave it in the description in case anybody, is able to do that. PayPal for me is the easiest, and it takes the least amount of money from everybody. It doesn't hit you with all these fees and stuff like that. So that's why I think that's the best one to go with, but I appreciate everybody that comes by and just watches, come by and chats. I love everybody that's just having a good time in the chat. People that spurg out and want to argue in the chat, just let them. Just let them spurg out for a second. If they don't stop, I'll take care of it. If they just argue for 30 seconds to a minute, I'm just going to leave it. If they're disrupting the chat and making people leave because they don't want to deal with it, then I'll take care of it. One or two moderators might have to come into play, but I don't like giving people the power to hide somebody's thing, because then it's out of my control, and I don't want to hide anybody or ban anybody unless if they get egregious. So, with that said, I'll give you guys an update later through Discord, Twitter, or my community tab on when I'm going to be streaming later tonight. I'm going to chill out for a little bit, take care of what I got to, hang out, eat, and yeah, I'll watch some content myself later on, and then stream's pretty much ready to go. Just got to talk to Johnny and get organized, and we'll put up a notification for you guys later. With that said, I'm out of here. Appreciate everybody. Love you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Share it if you liked it. Like it if you like it. Dislike it if you hate me. And like, share, subscribe, or don't. Love you guys. See you later.